Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast, episode 20 of Ask Me Anything. I'm Coach Prez, if you don't know. I'm a football coach and a self proclaimed blue belt philosopher. Okay? What we do is we talk about sports and philosophy, of course. Everything to do with getting better. Getting better. That's the whole point. The whole point is to get better. All right? So normally what I do is I start with sport, I answer some questions, whatever I have, and then we move on and we talk about everything else. However, just before I get into it, today it's going to be a tiny bit different. Yeah. I have to address the elephant in the room. I'm feeling a bit rough. I've had alcohol last night. Okay, so I'm not going to be as sharp. We're going to take it a bit easy today. We'll have a easy and probably a bit more light-hearted one. I've lost a lot of IQ points. Okay, yeah. Let's get into it. What I'm gonna do is to start. Let's see that. We're gonna read some TikTok comments. What we've started doing is we're putting TikTok little clips from the podcast on TikTok now. Yeah, and one of them got some comments and some haters. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go over the comments and we're gonna answer these comments. All right, instead of answering questions, we're gonna talk about the comments, which sounds like a lot of fun to me. Replying to comments. Let's go. So just obviously a little bit of context. What was the TikTok? Okay, in the TikTok, I said that the only thing that is special about your 20s, the thing that you can never get back, and the thing that cannot be replicated in any other period in your life, is you're not going to be able to reach your physical peak anymore. After you when you're past 20, yeah, when you reach 30 and after 30, that's it, it's over, it's done. That's it. You're done. You start declining. Now, how quickly you decline, that's a different story. But you start declining. That's a fact. That's not my opinion. That's a fact. This is what science says. I didn't make this up. All right, so I said that in the TikTok. And what happened? There was some guy starting to give me anecdotal evidence. What is anecdotal evidence? It's just stories, like singular stories that they do not disprove what I've just said. They just give me examples like exceptions, but exceptions, it just, anyway. Let's read them. So that's what I said. I said that's what's special about your 20s. You can never get your physical prime back. Once it's done, it's over. So, first comment. I have to disagree with this. I'm stronger than I ever was in my 20s and I feel more mentally stable. That's the first one. He has to disagree with this, okay? And all I said was, I obviously I replied. I said, listen, you're probably just more disciplined now. Because he's probably the guy, he works out, and he's saying, oh, I'm much stronger now than I was in my 20s. Okay, all right, so what? That's just you. The fact that you're stronger now does not mean that you would not have been stronger if you did the same thing in your 20s. But it's just, I have to disagree. It doesn't even, some people, they don't really listen. Okay, whenever someone is saying stuff, try and listen first. Try and listen. Next one. Ronaldo did. So he's saying that Ronaldo reached his prime after 20, his physical prime, which again is not true. We've already discussed this in the previous episodes. Maybe he reached his prime for football in his 30s, yeah, maybe early 30s. But why? Because he's still close to his physical prime, but his skill level is at an all-time high because he's had a couple of extra years of experience, couple extra years of practice and everything. So that's why he was better. That's why a lot of players and a lot of athletes that do sports that require skill, yeah, and decision making, they can reach their peak a bit earlier, maybe in their early 30s, because they're very close to their physical peak. They've just started declining, but that decline is overcompensated for by the fact that you're more skilled, you're more knowledgeable, and all these things. Okay? So that's why. So the guy saying Ronaldo did. So basically, again, he's not really listening to what I'm saying. Some people, they just listen to something and they immediately start trying to find a way to disagree with it without actually listening. And I even said in the video, 99% of the time, that's it. It's done. I said 99% of the time because I'm smart, because I'm a philosopher. I'm careful with what I say. Anyway, by the way, very soon, what time is it now? Probably 5:30. I'm gonna start getting hit with the waves of depression. You know, when you go and drink alcohol the next day, my depression hits me right between 6 and 7. This is the alcohol depression. You know, there is such a thing. Hopefully we don't notice it, or we don't get there. Right. Another comment. CR7 will disagree. Again, it's just people don't listen. They don't understand. Shit, that's why it's good. Watch the podcast. You would know that if you watch the podcast. 20 episodes in now. The people that watch consistently, they know. Okay, we know, we've established that in a sport when there's multiple ways to win, talent and physical ability matters less and less. The more ways there are to win, the more the importance of skill and decision making is accentuated. Is that a word? I think so. It is. All right, next comment. A lot of comments. Physical prime is 30 to 40 for a man. This guy, okay, he's got his own science that he's basing this on. He's basing this on a new science. What is he talking about? 30 or 40? Show me an example of a top athlete that reached their peak in their 30s. Or 40, I'm not even going to talk about 40s, this is a ridiculous statement, but 30s. Okay, but let's go for athletes that just do like track and field or stuff like that, runners, or don't know, just something that requires, or jumping, running, stuff like that. Should we have a quick look? I already know because I checked. Usain Bolt, the fastest man to ever live, set the record, the 100-meter record, when he was 23. He was 23. He wasn't 35. Let's have another look. the guy that high jump. Let's see that high jump. This you need to be very explosive. Okay, for high jump, your muscles need to be working properly. Okay, high jump record. Let's see. 245, and the guy was in 1993, Javier Sotomayor. 1993, he's born 67, so 1993 he was 26. How did I guess that? Probably I made it up. What else? Let's see. Shot put. Is it shot put? Let's see. Yeah, let's see the shot put. Men. 2023, Ryan Krauser. 23.5 meters. 2023, he's born 1992, so he was 29. Why? How is this possible? Where is that peak in their 30s? Just going through different sports, and this all require, it's just athleticism there. It's all in there. Let's see one of the, probably the runners. One of them is gonna disprove me. Let's see. Marathon. The guy was probably in his 30s. Marathon world record. Let's see. Oh, it's a bit messed up, this. Criteria. Eliud Kipchoge. When did this guy set the record? Yeah. 2019 was his quickest. That's the guy that got under the 2-hour mark barrier. 159.4. Okay. 2019, yeah, he was probably a bit older. He's born 84, so he was 35. The guy was 35 when he broke the record. Okay, there we go. We have an exception. Look at him. He looks very fresh. If you haven't seen him, that's why I said 99% of the time. There are some exceptions here and there, but again, it doesn't mean. This doesn't mean that you reach your peak at that age. You know why? Because probably when he dropped under 2 hours, you know what happened then? He used the new shoes from Nike. Okay, revolutionary shoes. I think the first Alpha Fly model. Okay, they're brilliant, and they helped him because they give him a bounce and whatever. So he dropped a couple of minutes just because of the shoes. So that's another thing. But we wouldn't know. We need some context sometimes. Okay, I happen to know about this. Yeah, about the shoes. But there are other things. Technology improves. Okay. So maybe when he was 25, he didn't have the technology available that he had when he was 35. And that's why his training improved, his tools improved, and he broke the record at a later stage. But generally, he could have run it quicker in his 20s, definitely, if he had the same training and the same technology. Okay, next comment. It would be fun if there's some hate comments. That would be so fun, honestly. I'm looking forward to it. I need to say something outrageous and put it on TikTok just to get some haters, disagreeing and whatever. I'm really looking forward to that moment. It will come. It will come. We just have to be patient. Okay, so I replied to this guy that said 30-40. I replied, I said, according to who? You've got literally all the scientific literature against you and an infinite amount of examples from all sports. The opposite is the exception, LeBron, Ronaldo, etc. So people that kind of extended their prime, that their prime went into their late 30s, mid to late 30s. And he goes, look at Arthur Beterbiev. Arthur Beterbiev, if you don't know, he's a boxer, yeah. He's the light heavyweight champion. So this is like, that category is about 79 kilos. Yeah, he's the world champion. He's got 21 fights, 21 wins, 20 knockouts. Okay, so he's a good boxer, a really good boxer, and he's got outstanding power because he's knocked out everyone but one, all of his opponents but one, the last one. Goes, he's 40 years old and he's competing with young fighter, he made a mistake there, with young fighters, he was supposed to say, because he looked after his health. He's human just like us, so it's possible to do the same. The guy's trying to turn it into a motivational speech. Yeah, he's just like us, he's a human. Yeah, and then again, he does not understand. Why? Because he doesn't watch the podcast. He doesn't know boxing requires skill. You need to be smart. You need to know what you're doing there. So at 39, you're still not done. You can still punch. You can still move. You don't need to be the the best physical specimen to be a good boxer. You have to have good technique first. Okay, you have to have good tactics. Beterbiev is blessed with a lot of power. Okay, so he's naturally very powerful. He's a very strong puncher. But that again, this is technique. And some people, this is now my personal opinion. Some people that some people can punch like really hard, knockout artists or whatever. I just think, obviously, apart from the physical gifts that they have, some of them just have an intuitive understanding of how to move their body to generate a lot of power. Just intuitively, they know how exactly to swing. It's all like obviously a kinetic energy chain or whatever. You push off with your legs, you do this, you twist, turn, how you transfer power. I just think some people have a better natural understanding of it. They can just feel it. That's why some people, it just comes natural. But yeah, that's just a bit of a off topic here. But yeah, the guy's giving an example with Beterbiev. So the same mistake, we've made the same mistake. 3 people or 2 people, I don't know, have made the same mistake with the same comment. They're giving examples, which are just exceptions. And this is people that do sports that require a lot of skill and knowledge. But we ignore that, okay? We ignore that. That definitely doesn't make a difference. It's all about physicality in sports. Definitely not about technique and skill. Because they use it as if it means that peaking in a certain sport automatically equals athletic peak. I don't know who said that. I never said that. But this is, again, you don't listen. You don't listen. You don't try and actually understand what the person in front of you is saying. That's a very common mistake. You need to listen carefully. And that's why I've said it before. You need to try and be very accurate with the way you talk. If you're not accurate with the way you talk, you risk being misunderstood. Because even when you're accurate, look at that. People are not really listening. So they're missing the point just because That's not my fault. I was very, very accurate with what I said. I said physical peak, athletic peak is done. You're never going to be able to run as fast as you could have in your 20s. You're never going to be able to jump as high as you could have in your 20s. Just stuff like that. And I said could have in your 20s if you tried. That doesn't mean that you cannot reach like a personal peak in terms of like shape in your 30s. You can be much fitter in your 30s than you were in your 20s. That's again, as I said, because why? Because you're just doing things better. If you did the same things in your 20s, you would have been up here. So maybe now you've reached like your prime. You've finally fulfilled your physical potential, which is 9.3 at 35 years old. If you did the same things, if you managed to fulfill your potential when you were 25, your potential would not have been 9.3, it would have been 9.6. That's the point. But maybe in your 20s you only reached 8.9 because you couldn't push far enough. You couldn't push yourself to get to squeeze out the max. And you were 8.9, and then now in your 30s you finally reach 9.3. Oh no, I've just reached my peak. No, you just missed the opportunity to reach it in your 20s, which is still good for you. There's nothing wrong with that, but I just want to make sure we all understand what we're talking about here. I've been talking about it for another 20 minutes now. Okay. So you said this about better BF, and then we've got the last one. That's a bit different. The guy needs help. Okay. I feel for this guy. I want to, but don't have the passion. So that's his comment. I want to, but don't have the passion for it. I've tried gym so many times, but after 2 consistent months, I lose the drive for it. Hardly even start hitting my calorie goals. It's an ongoing cycle. So he's struggling. He doesn't have the passion for it. Okay. He cannot stick to the gym. He cannot stick to his discipline. He wants to reach his peak, but he can't. So what's the problem there? He says passion. We've talked about it before, obviously, but we're gonna go over it again. So he cannot really get his calories. He's not. Yeah, he's struggling. He's struggling. I felt for him. I lose the drive after 2 consistent months. So what's the problem here? How can we fix that? I've said it many times. This is again about you need to make it a habit. Okay, you need to make it a habit because it is a habit. Going to the gym, it has to become a habit for you to see consistent results. Okay, you need to find a way to make it to a certain extent pleasurable. You need to be able to take some pleasure out of it. You need to get something positive. You need to be getting something positive from, because if you just rely on discipline, you're gonna run out of gas. You're gonna run out of steam, and then this happens. You stop. I lose the passion. Passion cannot push you for years or for months, which is what's required if you want to reach like a good level and a good like physical condition and whatever. If you want to start actually getting closer to your potential. Passion cannot push you for years. You can't, well, every morning you're going to wake up and you're going to be passionate. No, what it's going to come down to is your discipline. Okay, but then again, you can't really be disciplined all of the time. Sometimes it's a bit too much. Sometimes maybe you had a rough day and you had to use all that cognitive, let me throw a big word there. Basically, we only have a certain amount of willpower that we've got for each particular day, and then it kind of resets overnight, and then the next day you're ready to go again. Not willpower, but like decision making battery, let's call it. Yeah. So some days you've used it up, and unfortunately there is nothing left when it comes to going to the gym, and you just I can't. So you need to have these tactics in place for situations like that. It needs to be pleasurable to a certain point, to a certain extent. You need to enjoy it. Find a way to make it enjoyable. If not enjoyable, at least easy. Okay, if your gym is half an hour drive away from you, you're not gonna stick to it because it's just too long. Half an hour there, half an hour back. That's an hour. Get in the shower. All these things. If your gym is 2 minutes away from you, then it's a bit easier. If your gym is in your garden or in your room, yeah, just do some push-ups and whatever. That makes it a bit easier. So you need to, when you're thinking about what you're gonna do, you need to find a way to make it consistent. Okay? Refresh. Find a way to make it consistent. To be consistent, you need to make it simple and easy. I've given the example before. How do I listen and read to my books? How do I listen to my books and read or whatever? I always have my Red Bull. I open my Red Bull, I sit back, and I put the book on. I enjoy this. I can do that every day, no problem. If it was something that I really hate, I wouldn't do it. I spent the first 18 or 19 years not doing it because I hated it, and because no one really showed me a way to do it in a way that I enjoy, basically. And I couldn't see the value in it. I just thought, oh, that's just too much work, and I get nothing from it, which was not the case. I can get something from it, but I was reading the wrong books. Okay, so we've addressed this now. Let's answer a question now. This is the comments. Let's see what we have after. Oh, what questions do we have? I had something. I cannot find it though. Yeah. All right. Let's answer that something then. How do you decide what's worth fighting for? Well, how do I answer this today? How do you decide what's worth fighting for? You need to decide what you need to understand yourself first. You need to evaluate your priorities and what you want to do and what you want to get out of life in general. And how do you decide what's worth fighting for? Do you know your priorities? Do you know what you value? This is something that's going to come from inside. You can obviously shape it up a little bit, change it to a certain extent, make a conscious decision. Okay, I value this, I don't value that. But to a certain extent, there are things that are intrinsic. So they're giving you an intrinsic. You're intrinsically motivated to do them. All right. So what was I gonna say? Depression is starting to hit now. My thoughts are getting slower and slower and darker and darker. Okay, yeah. So once you know yourself, then you know what's worth fighting for. I didn't really give an answer to this. I'll try and fix it. I just got a bit distracted. So you know what is important to you, but you need to be very clear, and you need to kind of prioritize. How do you do that? Then use philosophy. Read books so you can clarify. Read all of, you know what's good for you. Read all of Plato's books. Listen to Socrates and Plato. Obviously, Plato, the way he wrote his books, most of them are about Socrates' dialogues with people. So he just had conversations with people. Okay, so these people, they will have different points of view, and then Socrates would just go to them and kind of examine them. Use the Socratic method. What's the Socratic method? Is basically like asking questions. Why? Let's see what Google says actually about the Socratic method before I make a very big mistake. The Socratic method. Argumentative dialogue based on asking and answering questions. Am I smart? I am. Ultra intelligent. This is the Socratic method. So this is what Socrates was doing. He's going to people, he started having conversations with them. Okay, so you believe this, all right. Yeah, why? Okay, but if that was the case, then so you would say that this is that way then, yeah? And the person said, "Oh, no." So he started showing he basically leads them to a point where they contradict themselves, and then they understand. Because if you can show someone that he's contradicting himself, then he's forced to face reality. He's forced to face reality. Because a lot of people can give crazy justifications for what they think and for their opinions and just beliefs. But if you can get them to a point where they contradict themselves, then they're kind of they've got their backs against the wall. Okay, so to know how to prioritize things, it's good to read books like that. It's good to read Plato. This is obviously the ancient Greeks. These are classics. The texts are not very complicated. They're not very complex. They're simple. They're not using like a lot of abstract concepts and all of this. It's made simple, and the way it's written very simply. Everyone can understand it if you sit down and you just read, and then you see how these guys, you see how they really try to structure their lives and their values, and they that's why they're so important. They made an attempt to give some sort of structure to everything, to things that have no structure, to things that don't really exist, to ideas, to values. So that was very difficult, but that's why the all-time great Plato, Socrates, some of the greatest philosophers of all time. And you read them, the way they talk about on stuff like that, even just everything. Why would you value this above this? Is what did Plato say in one of the book? What was the question? The question was, is now I need to find it. It was is I'll find it next time, because I'm gonna be here for a minute trying to work it out. Maybe next week I can read some of the texts and tell you some of the stories, because they're like stories. But yeah, read these guys, see the way they try to prioritize things, and that's gonna give you ideas, and you're gonna be, oh, that makes so much sense now. Now you can start making your thoughts and like priorities, values a bit clearer because you saw how they did it. Because for most people, like having structure to your thoughts or like your values or priorities is a bit sounds a bit of a gray area. Sounds like when someone talks about things like that, they sound crazy. No one really does it, but it's good. It's good if you can have structure. Structure helps you. That's why when people building construction sites like buildings or whatever, you have scaffolds. You need scaffold. You need a scaffold before you can build, before you can go up, before you can go high. You first scaffold because it's easier. Imagine building all these skyscrapers and whatever with no scaffold. How? With all these tall buildings, no scaffold. That's why it's the same thing. You use a scaffold when you think. And don't be afraid to try and give some structure to these things that are more like metaphysical. That's what philosophy does, to be honest, in short. So yeah, understand yourself, understand your priorities, and then you're gonna know. You know. You know. Next question. Um, I've answered this one. I need to delete it. What's a belief you hold that you think most people would disagree with? We've answered this one. Should we try to forget our past in order to create a new future? I've answered this one as well. How do you decide what's worth fighting for? I just answered this, so I keep deleting. What motivates individuals to seek power and authority? You know what does? I reckon this is just the natural selection in play there. I think this is probably hard coded in us. You want to look for power and authority. Why? Because in the past, we're talking thousands and millions of years, what it meant is you're going to survive. So the fight for survival. You want to be survival of the fittest, obviously. Yeah. So the stronger you are, the more power you have, the more likely you're going to survive, and your genes are going to survive, and you're going to reproduce and everything else. The weaker you are, you're probably not going to, you're not going to last. That's not good for you. So I think it just kind of is hard coded in us, and and that's why people look for it, and people like seek it unconsciously, consciously, whatever. This is just evolution at play. This is like, to me at least, I'm just giving you an opinion at the moment. I haven't really read this. I cannot give you a reference for it. Although for most things I can give you a reference. For this one, it's just personal opinion. I think that's what I think. I think there is a lot of things left in us, in the way we think, the way we act, that are left from just millions of years of evolution, and they're not that useful anymore, but they're still in us, like fight or flight response and stuff like that. You're probably not gonna get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger today, but we still have the fight or flight response, or freeze and all that. Yeah, although highly unlikely to get eaten by something, and highly unlikely to have to resort to violence, to physical violence, to get wherever we want to get to. Obviously, society is supposed to be peaceful. supposed to be. But yeah, still exists. You cannot just things that are not used. They kind of go away, but it takes time. They don't just disappear just because you're not using them anymore. Okay, just because they're not useful, it's gonna take a while for them to kind of get um, for natural selection to kind of move away from them. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. What defines the self? Is it our thoughts, our body, or something else? What defines the self? What is the self? So your body is not the self, your thoughts, or something else. What else? The self is probably this basically the narrator. Is complex. It's a bit complex. What is the self? I don't think there is no hard answer to that question. What is the self? What is it? What do you mean self? Let's see what Google says for self, and then I'll give you. Once we're just gonna look for what Google says self is. We're gonna go by that definition, and then I'm gonna tell you what I think. 'Cause what you think self is one thing. What the person that asked the question, the person that's watching this is gonna have a different idea of self. Then I'm gonna have a third different idea of self. Then I'm gonna give an answer according to what my own idea is. And if we don't kind of come across with a way to establish what we all mean by self, then answering the question is pointless. So again, look, it's about being accurate. We have to be accurate when we talk and when we try to have a conversation or ask questions or answer questions. Self definition. A person, this is dictionary, a person's essential being that distinguishes them from others, especially considered as the object of introspection or reflexive action. It's a bit of a very broad definition. What's the exact meaning of self? One's own person. The thing that distinguishes you from others. Let's call it this. Yeah, the essential part that distinguishes you from others. That's the self. So what defines it? I think it's just I'm getting lost within the question, because what do you mean what defines it? You define it. It's you. How can I define what you are or what I am? What defines the self? Am I reading into it too much? Is it our thoughts, our body, or something else? What defines the self? What he basically is asking in a very complex way, what is the self? Is it the body? Is it the thoughts or something else? It's not your body, it's your thoughts. Is what is the thing in you that that thinks. What was that thing? I don't know. That's you or me and whatever else. What I can say is I'm not there, mate. Read. Nah, he doesn't really talk about this, the self. See, I've read some Buddhist texts. They kind of they have an interesting view on that. They obviously, because they reject it a little bit. They say everything is one, and becoming enlightened is all about understanding this, understanding that there is no me, you, she, her, him. All this is just one, and understanding that you're part of everything else and everything else is part of you. Yeah. You're on your way to becoming enlightened, because listen to this. they have these Buddhists and obviously these Zen monks and things like, they have like, I think it's called koans. Koans? Yeah, I think so. Which is like sentences, like not really a mantra, but just like sentences and questions that they need to reflect on. I'm pretty sure that's what it means. And some of the questions that they give them, obviously the teachers there, are just like ridiculous. Think, what was your face before your mom and dad were born? Or something like this. And you need to think about this and you need to try and come up with an answer. And based on your answer, they kind of say, okay, you've reached enlightenment now. Or stuff like that. What was your face before your parents were born? What was your face before your parents were born? Think about the question. There is no answer. Let's see if there is actually a question like that. There is a Zen koan. How do I pull up information like that just out of thin air from my head, from something that I've read 3.5 years ago? That's insane. There is a Zen koan that says, show me your original face before you were born. A variation is, without thinking of good or evil, show me your original face before your mother and father were born. How do I remember so many things? No preparation, nothing. This koan asks us to stretch towards our real and authentic self, the self we were before we were born. Okay, so what is this self? What is you? This clearly gives you an answer. It's not the body. Okay, because the self, or what you were, according to your beliefs, obviously, you were something out there, kind of. That's such a difficult topic. I need to get some authority on it. Someone, even if the guy is insane or I disagree with him, but someone that really spends time thinking about this. Because I don't think about this too much. Because I have not contradicting beliefs, but I haven't really clarified what I believe in exactly why. Because I don't really think that it's going to make much of a change. My exact opinion about self, and I've just let it kind of build up over time, just naturally. But as you can see, I've read stuff about it. I've read the Zen. I've read quite a few books about Zen Buddhism. That's a Zen koan. You see, I even remember the word, and that's what they say. But it makes you think. What was my face before I was born? So before you existed, kind of. And then you start thinking, but what do you mean before I existed? So what happened? Basically, I was just am I just the collection of matter? Am I just a collection of molecules and, atoms, protons and whatever, electrons? So that collection gets put together in such a way that I have this experience of consciousness and of myself and of my thoughts. It's a bit crazy there. We go. Wah, wah, wah. Tottenham just scored against Chelsea. So yeah, let's answer one more question before we finish. And let's see what we've got. Let's delete this one. Can forgiveness truly heal, or does it merely mask the pain? I've answered this. Is depression real? I've answered this. Is it possible to truly understand someone else's perspective, or are we forever confined to our own subjective experiences? We are forever confined within our own subjective experiences. It is, in fact, impossible to truly understand someone else's perspective. You can try, you're not gonna succeed, because we all have this. We all look. We all look at the world through our own kind of individual lenses and perspective, and it's very difficult to even get a little bit close to understanding someone else's. What you can do though is read philosophy. Guys, philosophy. Read as much as you can. This is what gives you different perspectives. Nothing can make up for reading. I feel like I've already had this talk before, but the more you read, the more you understand. The more, and philosophy books, are they easy to read? No, some of them are extremely difficult. But just you having a go, yeah, and actually trying to understand what the guy is trying to say, even though it's difficult, just that effort starts building up your understanding and starts putting the foundations that you need if you're actually going to try and understand someone else's perspective. Because a lot of people, they think the same way. And they think the same way, and they don't really go out of their way to try and actually understand someone that's a bit different. They can only understand people who are exactly like them. Everyone else is weird. Everyone else is this, is that, just something. They always have something to say about everyone else. So if you're not like them, or then, oh, this guy's weird, or why does that guy have podcast, or whatever, just because having a podcast or whatever else is not the norm, or he's weird, stuff like that. So, but the more you read, then you start understanding. You understand. You start seeing the patterns. Okay, there is different certain types of things that motivate people to do this, to do that. Certain types of people. Maybe you want, again though. It helps you with obviously. It helps you with not putting labels on people and not judging them too early, but always like being careful, examine the evidence. Okay, don't just go, oh yeah, I've seen people like that, this guy is this and this and that, and then boom, full story, full stop, that's it. I know exactly what he's like, I know what he wants and everything. So you're aware there are exceptions, there's different type of people, so you don't group them too much. You group them, but you allow for exceptions. But yeah, you just broadens the way you think and the way you see the world. I think Bertrand Russell said, and I think I read it on a podcast, the person that doesn't have any understanding of philosophy and doesn't engage with it and whatever, he's like looking at the world through a keyhole, where if you read philosophy, you can actually get the key and just open the door and actually see, instead of just doing this. That's what he was talking about. He was talking about perspective. So philosophy is going to allow you to get very close to actually understanding someone else. Is it going to be completely? No. Why? Because just language itself has got its limitations. Okay? Words can only take you so far. right? Because there is so many variables just from any given sentence at any time that it's impossible for the guy to understand what you mean 100%. Let's say I give you one sentence. Oh, today I had a really bad headache. It was bad, one of those headaches that you can't get out from bed. For example, from this sentence, you might understand that this headache, you start imagining what a headache means. What does it feel like? So you're not going to be able to get that perfectly, right? Maybe my head was hurting here, you're imagining the pain here, that's different. Then what I meant is like a pain of like equivalent of, let's say, 8.7, you imagine at 8.3. So it's just very inefficient. And if we try and clarify all those things, then we're not going to be able to talk to each other because it's just going to be too difficult. So we've just accepted a way of communicating things to a certain extent, which is good enough, right? It's not over the top, but it's good enough. But it's never going to be good to a point where you can understand someone else, you can understand what they mean completely. And if you're not able to understand them completely, then you're not going to be able to see their perspective very accurately. That's why, again, I'm probably repeating this for the 5th time today, so something to take away from this podcast, which is a struggle for me to get through, is what? Try and be accurate with the way you talk. And when you listen, be careful how you listen, okay? Pay attention. Listen to what people say. Listen carefully. Don't try and put words in their mouth. Don't try and assume too many things. Listen to what they say. And when you speak, don't leave things to be assumed. Yeah, be accurate. Be articulate. This is this is that, this is that. That's it. No room for, interpretation. So yeah, that's it. 58 minutes, a bit shorter today. But we still got it done. Number 20, a bit hungover, headache and everything. But we got it done. So I'll be back next week. Ciao.